Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dan Nessel Show. I'm your host, Dan Nessel. I hope you're really ready to get deep into LinkedIn today, because that's what we're going to do. We are going to have an episode that's almost entirely focused on LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator. I'm really excited about this one, obviously, because I'm a big LinkedIn fan. Anybody who listens to the show knows that. And also, we're going to get, like I said, pretty geeky and technical on the whole thing. We're also going to tell some stories and really talk about some of the history around LinkedIn and have a fun time at it with my guest today, because you'll see he is uniquely positioned to talk about this. And you're going to have a lot of fun listening to him. So without further ado, let's get right into it with Mike O'Neill. What a great day this is. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while. And for anybody who doesn't know Mike, and you'll get plenty of information about him, of course, during the course of this conversation. But I met Mike a few months ago, and I don't know how it took us that long, Mike, because we run in similar circles and have apparently for about 18 years, just haven't ever connected. We have something like 300 mutual connections on LinkedIn. I know that doesn't necessarily mean a lot these days, but I think if you look at those connections, it's amazing that I've never come across you. But I'm so happy that you're here. Mike is the CEO of, I'm going to get this right, Integrated Alliances, which is a LinkedIn focused consulting firm. And Mike is basically probably the LinkedIn expert in my pantheon of people that I deal with. I mean, if I think about somebody who really, I want to know something about LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn, social media in general, but definitely LinkedIn, Mike's the guy. And I'm really so pleased to have met you, Mike. So, I mean, I'd just like to start off by just saying, first, thank you for being here. But now let me just hand it over to you. And if you can tell folks a little bit about yourself and, why you're here and what's going on.
Well, thank you, Dan. That was really nice of you. I'm an old timer here in the business. I'm user number 125,841. And there's 700 million people on LinkedIn.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I got you beat.
You might.
I'm 65,000 something.
Isn't that amazing? And
amazing.
You never say, I want to be that. You can't be that. You have to have been that.
That's right. And it ceased to have meaning at some point. But that means we must have joined within days of one another.
Here's what it means. It means we both knew somebody who was ahead of their time, who invited us on LinkedIn back in 2003. For me, 2004, January 14th, 2004.
Wow.
You got in on the first year. Well, I did too, but the first calendar year.
Right.
And it just means you know somebody. That's really what it meant, because nobody knew what it was. It came in an email to me that said, join this thing called LinkedIn. And they didn't know what it was either.
Nobody
did. Nobody did. Nobody.
That's when we were calling these things social networks, for crying out loud.
Yeah, the word social media didn't exist.
Not
you
even.
Could have bought every relevant domain known to man and cornered the market had you known how that term was going to come up.
Now that you mentioned that, 2003 was probably the year I was first exposed to not only social media and social networking, and the opportunity to really start businesses and buy businesses in that area, which I didn't do. Shame on me. But I think it was also, when did crypto start? When did Bitcoin start? It was probably just a couple of years after that. And, and that's another opportunity that I completely did not pick up on. So the first decade of 2000 to me is a decade of starting really cool things and missing some very, very big ones.
Well, you mentioned crypto, and I did get involved in that for a while. And I've still got my Coinbase accounts and all this, that stuff. I just got out of it because, I wanted to come back into what I'm focused on.
Yeah.
I had a client in the Bitcoin business, hired me to create a YouTube channel, a Facebook page, all this other stuff on top of LinkedIn that I don't normally do.
Yeah.
But we were really good buds, like you and I are. And you step out and you provide out of your comfort zone help to people who are friends of yours who will let you fail.
Yeah.
Not a customer, a friend and customer in some cases. But LinkedIn's where everything rolled back up except for LinkedIn and his business. That never rolls up.
Yeah.
Your LinkedIn account is your account. You're going to die someday and it's going to be there. There's even a what do you want to do with your account when you die parameter.
Wow. You're going to show me that. I don't even know that one. You're going to have to show
There
me
are these parameters. There's one in Facebook as well. Okay.
that. Okay. All
So I
right.
don't want to go too far because we're
Nope.
talking on positive stuff here. But like my father passed away and his profile is still out there.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that function didn't exist when he passed away.
Yep.
So I can't just go in as maybe I could go in and stuff. I leave it as a tribute to him. He
Yeah.
had a
It's a good thing.
big deal for me.
Yeah.
So I'm the LinkedIn guy, and I'm not really the LinkedIn everything person. That's become its own specialty.
Yeah.
I'm the LinkedIn campaign and data integration expert. That's what I do, and it's all with Sales Navigator. We do very little with LinkedIn itself, other than where LinkedIn works well with Sales Navigator.
Sure.
But if people don't have a Sales Navigator account, they're generally working with somebody else.
I
That's
see.
not us.
Yeah. There's been a lot of obviously attention paid to Sales Navigator over the last few years, but certainly in this last year, in this last calendar year, right? It seems to me that Sales Navigator has, I don't know what their internal numbers are telling them at LinkedIn, but from my anecdotal experience as a target and a user of Sales Navigator related things, I feel like it's increased like tenfold or 100-fold. It seems nuts right now. So can you tell me a little bit about like what you're seeing happening in Sales Navigator and why that's happening, and what's going on there?
Yeah, that's a good thing because folks on your call might have heard a lot about LinkedIn and
Hmm.
profiles and stuff elsewhere. They're going to hear about new stuff from you and I. All right.
Yeah, sure.
So first of all, a lot of people are moving over to Sales Navigator because the features that they've wanted and needed over the years are no longer in LinkedIn.
Right.
If you want to search on zip codes, only option is Sales Navigator. And here's one that happened recently. Okay, I want to go down the long list. I'll just use an example that hits everybody sooner or later, and this would hit you.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Boolean? Remember how you can do or stuff? CEO
Of course.
or president or. You can only use 5
Mhm.
ors now in LinkedIn, and that's it. Used to be able to do 50.
Yeah. I feel like most people only get to one, but but yeah, I see what you're saying. If you really
Well,
want to search for people,
what if
yeah.
you're trying to name the sports?
Mhm.
Okay, it works in keywords this way as well.
Yeah,
5 is not many to do.
not at all.
Baseball or football or hockey or basketball or tennis, and you're done. All the other sports are gone, you know?
Right.
Or you create another search with another 5 and another one with another 5 and another one with another 5. And you got to break things up, and it's really difficult. Whereas in Sales Navigator, it just glides right on it.
Mhm.
It's just so easy. And there are over 30 filters over in Sales Navigator. 30 filters, and you've got a dozen in LinkedIn. So, I mean, you could say it's 3 times as good, and you're probably right. It's 3 times as good.
How long can you make a Boolean string in Sales
Up
Navigator?
to about 100 words.
Up to 100 words. Yeah, it's amazing.
But let me say that again. 100 words, and then you can create a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one, and add them in. They're additive.
Mm.
Here's my first 100. Here's my second 100. Here's my third 100. Here's my fourth 100. So 100 per.
Yeah,
And then
and all overlapping on one another.
they just get added in right on top of each other. You just keep adding in where the keywords are in Sales Navigator. It says add, and you just add another one, and add
Mm.
another one, and add another one, and you get these little blue squares that have them. So like everyone in my world seems to want to call on the presidents and the CEOs.
Yeah.
No, they got to be having pretty crowded inboxes nowadays. You know.
Yep.
The second tier that I offer our clients and that we use ourselves sometimes are what we call the C's.
Mhm.
And that's the CIO, the COO, the CFO, not chief anything officer, but we've selectively taken some of the C's. Controller, comptroller.
Mhm.
They just all happen to start with the letter C. Really,
Yeah.
it's catchy.
It's one of those, I think you can make a lot of alliterative phrases using C.
C's are. I lived in
Command
Colorado for
control,
23 years.
Colorado.
You want to own the C's in the alphabet. Let me tell you. I'll share the
Yeah.
story. Or we could share stories, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm working for US West as a sales engineer
Mhm.
at US West. I'm the guy who the sales team calls on when it's a tough sale, a data sale or a tough sale. which is a lot of stuff for them at that time. This is
Sure.
97, 98,
Yep.
99. DSL is just rolling out.
Oh, goodness. Yep.
And the ads on TV for DSL show these happy small businesses and people at home with their DSL. The problem was people would call in and want to order that. I'll have that. I'll have what they're having on TV. I'll have
Yeah.
what they're having. And in a business environment, DSL was not shareable.
Right.
So if you had 5 people at the office, what do you think the solution was?
5 DSL lines at the time, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And most businesses did not have enough leftover copper in their wiring to do even 5
Yep.
solutions. So anyway, I was a sales engineer. We had to find a solution to that, and we did. We rented them, or we rented clients a Cisco router with a firewall on it.
Wow. 97.
97, a
That was
Cisco
serious, like a rocket technology there at that time.
1605.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like an inline fuse.
Yeah.
The DSL modem went into it, and on the other side went their hub.
Mm-hmm.
They had everyone connected to. Not a switch back then, it was just a hub.
Yep.
But everyone won there. The client won because they got the DSL service that was advertised. They got a firewall. We loaned them the money for it on a 3-year term. So it's 1/36 of the cost of the equipment. And we waived the setup fee if they signed on for 3 years. So everybody wins.
Yeah.
My sales reps got $500, $600 per deal, spiff
Boom.
on top of it. So everybody loves it. So anyway, that was my early career and early data communication stuff, working for the telco community out there.
Mhm.
Eventually, I ended up working for really big firms doing global networks all over the world for cable and wireless. And then 9/11 came along,
Mm.
and all those jobs were gone. At least you couldn't buy a job, is what we'd say. Couldn't buy a job.
And that was right on top of the dot bomb that happened, the year before that or running up to that. So
One caused and affected the other and vice versa. I won't say anything caused 9/11, but 9/11 showed people the weaknesses in the industry, and all the capital rolled up for all the .coms at that point.
Mhm.
And LinkedIn came along.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Right at that
that's
time.
what I did. I essentially hopped out of one pan and into the other, right then and there,
Yeah. And that's about the time I was in Japan at the time, and I don't know if you ever heard of this, and this is probably how I got onto LinkedIn, actually. I was involved with a UK-based nascent social network called Academy. And Academy was run, Academy, yeah? You were on the same thing? Yeah.
Little bit. I'm trying to remember who.
So Thomas Power.
Penny Power, and
Thomas Penny Power. Yeah. And Thomas Power's still around. The guy, I mean, he wrote a book at the time, I think he either wrote the book or treatise of some kind about the power of the weak link. And, he really jumped built this platform with he got it built, this Academy platform. And a friend of mine and I were like the first 2 people in Japan to be using it. There's not a lot of native English speakers in Japan. So we just kind of jumped on and we started Academy Japan, and it went nowhere. Like it went nowhere because social media and social media wasn't really a thing yet. Social networking was a bridge too far for people we knew in Japan at the time, right? At the time. Remember, this is 2003, 2004. It was a very interesting moment in time. But
Did you ever do MySpace?
Did MySpace, did everything, man. If
Too.
I have,
Yep.
I have
AOL, the whole bit, right?
I don't know how many dead accounts I have in my name out there now, but lots. I mean, I'm sure there's a graveyard of DS Nestles. And anybody who follows me, my username on Twitter and everywhere is always DS Nestle, right? So same thing with MySpace, same thing with half of these dead and gone networks.
If you're early on there, you can claim your name for it. I'm / Mike O'Neill on LinkedIn, / Mike O'Neill on Facebook.
Yeah.
/ Mike O'Neill on Twitter. Let me tell that story. But yeah, I don't have them on all the platforms. So MikeO'Neill.com is a really cool guy. Really cool Mike O'Neill. He is.
Is he really?
Cool. He plays in a band called The Lawyers. I think he's a lawyer. And when you go, I'm not sure. The last time I was there was a few years ago. But the spinning guitar comes in, and he's all of a sudden at the end, he's holding it.
Yeah.
And he has my domain. I'm going like, yes, at least you're doing good for us.
At least a
You're
good
not
guy
a
to have.
dork.
Well, my last name, as everybody knows, is Nestle. So I could not acquire the Nestle domain.
Obviously.
At the very beginning. Nestle wasn't having it. But so my revenge was to have my LinkedIn is LinkedIn/Nestle, Nestle. So at least I have that. I'm content. But
On Twitter, the guy who had it had no tweets or anything, but he owned it, and I really wanted it, and I tried to reach out, and then he started using it. And it's like, oh well,
Yeah.
he was like I was early on. He got there before me, so
yeah,
he gets the prize.
Yep. So circling back to LinkedIn, we got on at 2003, right? And we started to build your LinkedIn presence, and you really started to dive deep into the platform.
I was getting paid $500 to spend an afternoon with folks by about February or March of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And it was mostly recruiters.
Yeah.
They were the first ones on to realize that I can find people that other people can't find. That was really big in the early days.
You said 2004, right?
2004. Yeah, this is
not 2014. Yeah.
Yep, 2004. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it hadn't even been a year old. There's no recruiter version, but recruiters in the Bay Area, how much money do they get when they find somebody? $100,000.
Yeah.
One deal, $100,000. So another 100, another 100, another 100. And what they want at that time is they want access to people that no one else knows about. That's it. So while LinkedIn was a secret, it was a secret weapon.
Yeah.
It didn't become long. All the recruiters have special versions and stuff now, but you can start to tell and smell when things are like bought, purchased, canned, automated because of, obviously I'm a man. You didn't look at my profile and see I don't even have hair. In some cases, I work with systems and stuff, and if some of them can clean up a first name, and some of them can't. I respect other things and the ones that can't, that make them better, or vice versa. You don't get all that you're looking for in anything, do you, Dan?
Never.
Along came pictures, and then along came LinkedIn groups.
Mm-hmm.
Along came company pages. That was kind of, now we're at like up to 2008 now.
Yeah. Yeah. And still the search functionality of LinkedIn was prehistoric, right?
You used to be able to get more functionality out of LinkedIn searches than you do now. They took features out of LinkedIn, like the size of the company and whether you were a premium subscriber or not and stuff, and moved them over to Sales Navigator. And LinkedIn is left with a hole behind there.
Yeah.
The premium version of LinkedIn used to have features that are gone too, like tags and lists and stuff, and they're gone. So it's just a foregone conclusion that if you're using Sales Navigator, you're in for business, and if you're not in it, then you're maybe not in it for business.
Sure.
You're an amateur, or you're just a weekend looky-loo. If you're serious, you got to have it. You really do. You got to have it.
Or you're just looking to be found
if you're serious about outbound, that's right. If you're just great one, Dan, where if you're just looking to be found, that's where your fancy schmancy profile stuff that you do comes in.
Exactly.
That storytelling and the keywords. That's right. My folks want to choose their own clients instead of having their clients choose them, because they get all these weird people knocking on the door. Job seekers. I don't help job seekers, or people who sell multi-level marketing products. Well, I can't help you. I don't work with that. Or when you can use Sales Navigator to be really selective and find folks not that you just like, but folks that you think will like you as well.
Well, you were getting there before we were talking about the multiple search strings that you can and keywords that you can use in effect on Sales Navigator, and you're using the C's as an example. But that's interesting. What you just said, I think, is key. How, to make sure that you are finding the right fit is really hard to do, and to make sure that the right fit is finding you, obviously, is hard to do. So, to be found, it's all about crafting your profile properly and using the right keywords in your profile and making sure that you have everything the way it needs to be. Obviously, that's to be found, because that's a passive activity. But when you're searching for something, whether it's a business partner, a potential customer, or a friend, who knows, whatever you're searching for, the more functionality tech in theory is better, right? So that's where Sales Navigator kicks the hell out of LinkedIn as far as the level to which you can get down. And that was interesting when you were talking about the C's, because I remember last time we talked, there's so many CEOs out there that are just not CEOs, right? I mean, I have my own company, an LLC. I could call myself the CEO of that LLC if I want to, right? I don't, but I could. And then I would pop up in too many searches of people who are looking for CEOs, and it would piss me off because I'm not. Those offers would be unlikely to appeal to me. But it would also piss off the searcher because here's another guy that's outside the zone, looks like he's supposed to be in the zone. So how do you fix that?
Well, first of all, what you just described, my quick fix for it is the company size filter.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we'll eliminate the 1 to 10s. We'll start with 11 to 50, 50 to 200, 200 to 500. And that's usually where my clients are. 11 to 50, 50 to 200, 200 to 500. Bigger than that, they probably have the departments that do what I do. Smaller than that, they're probably a one-person shop. 1 to 10 is usually 1.
Right. Yeah, usually.
With Sales Navigator, you get that. Without Sales Navigator, you got 3M and you got little Susie Q, all in the same search, potentially.
Yep.
The filters are used not to find people, Dan.
Mhm.
You start out with 700 million people. You found 700 million people. That's not what it's about. It's to find specific people and to exclude people that might show up that you have the power to exclude before they even hit your eyeballs. Okay.
Yeah.
Call it a not command in the Boolean world. It's a little easier on LinkedIn. You'd put a series of titles you want, this or this or this. And you got another list of titles that you don't want that happen to show up.
Mhm.
If you don't take vice presidents out and you're just searching for presidents, you're going to find vice presidents because the term vice president has what?
President.
Right
inside.
there.
Mhm.
So you see where you got to kind of go out of your way and carve out some things.
Mhm.
And that's where my expertise comes in. I do badass Boolean.
Badass Boolean.
Badass
I write that
Boolean.
down. Mhm.
Yeah, and
What's
you do it.
what's the difference between regular ass Boolean and badass Boolean?
I'll share the secret with you.
Please, man.
You got to have Sales Navigator to do it.
Mhm.
Okay. You create big lists of exclusions. When you're searching for presidents and CEOs, you'll find assistants there. You'll find interns, you'll find fraternity president, sorority president, interim presidents, all this stuff. And you can use all of those words and exclude them. So your eyeballs never even see people. They're using that terminology. How's that for badass?
Yeah, it works.
How about using thesaurus.com to find out other ways that people use similar words? Now, you don't need it for CEOs and stuff, but I'm doing one of my clients is an electrical contractor guy.
Mhm.
He does consulting and he's an expert witness in electrical high voltage stuff, even medium voltage, but not low voltage. So can you see where I've got my list of stuff we include and stuff we exclude based on words that go with high voltage engineer, high voltage construction manager, high voltage this, high voltage that. And you need all that capacity and that badass Boolean to deliver exactly what you want and exactly nobody or very few in there that you don't. That's what I mean.
Just the fact that you can look for high voltage versus low voltage people, which by the way is now a new thing to me, and I'm going to have to go do some searches after this. But the fact that those people are findable on LinkedIn says a whole lot about the LinkedIn platform, how it's evolved since the recruiter days of 2003 and 4. Absolutely.
Here's what happened. LinkedIn had a huge heyday in 2008. Do you know why?
Financial crisis.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
People who'd said, I don't need LinkedIn, I got a job.
No job.
There you go. Had LinkedIn been around in 2001, it would have been explosively huge.
Yeah.
Because you had all the tech guys losing their jobs. The tech folks didn't lose their jobs as much in 2008 as the financial people did and other stuff. We lost ours 7 years earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we got hit too. I'm sure that was a toughie. But But that's when, the job creation people, you go file for unemployment, you go to job training, and they teach you LinkedIn then.
Yep.
You got to get a LinkedIn profile, you got to have a resume. Now they're taking pictures even there at the job place for you.
Yeah. I think I got my first official LinkedIn headshot around that time.
Yeah, there was a certain way, you turn your shoulders this way and turn your eyes this way or some other way. It
Mike's
was
doing
like
some
a
great poses.
trend back then. Hey, let me give a really quick tip to your audience. Can I
Please.
real quick on pictures?
Of course.
Your picture needs to be really interesting. Either you need to be an interesting fellow or your picture needs to be interesting. If you're not particularly interesting, and you are, Dan, you got a cool look. Okay, not
Appreciate
everyone's
that.
blessed with the cool look or having hair at our age.
I love liking you every minute, Mike. Thank you.
I show the hair. My pictures
Got the
are
hair.
designed to show it because I got it. But the background can be interesting if you're
Mhm.
not.
Sure.
So, like behind you are books. If you had a fuzz, let's say you had a really average head, the books could be a little blurred out.
Average head, blurry books. We're going to write that down.
Average head.
Average head, blurry books.
That's right.
That's a good formula. I love it.
So, but your picture really matters because if you don't look like someone that they would want to do business with or talk to or listen to or anything, if you don't look like them,
Mhm.
you're boxed out.
Yeah.
They're looking for reasons that they don't like people, and the way you look is reason number one.
Yeah.
Reason number one. So don't do anything that would upset anybody.
Mhm.
Try to pull them on in or realize if they like your head, then they're going to look at your headline or the beginning of it and something else about you, perhaps.
And by the way, the flip side of that is your picture, even if it's interesting, cannot tell a story that's different from the story that's being told by your profile, right? And for the most part, that's you'd have to almost do that on purpose, I think. But it's always I always advise people that when they're getting inquiries from others to connect, like, hey, connect with me. One of the first things that I do is look, if I don't know the person at all, I take a look at their profile picture and the information that I see right away. And obviously, if you see, for example, 23-year-old supermodel, right? And 25 years of experience, there's a problem. So
you hit that very, very well.
Yeah, you got to be real careful. But the picture, it's so important to have your picture tell your story just as well as your story tells your story.
Now, what you're describing is a dating platform.
Yeah, exactly. LinkedIn has been that way, I'm sure, for some people.
And I am on dating platforms. I am now single again. So there's a lot of an analogy between the two. On Match.com, they have an about section. It holds 4,000 characters.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn about section holds 2,600.
Yeah.
You tell your story. Just a little twisted, a little different. Not twisted, but pointed in different directions and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, where were we? That was a fun.
Sorry, we were talking about search, about finding people, about getting the badass Booleans and so on.
So let me share another really great little one on search. I just love to do search. This is what I do best. If you got a toughie search, come to me for it. How do you find just men or women?
Well, especially in this day and age, it's not always very clear, and some people don't identify that way, right? So, how do we do it?
How do you do it? Let's say the end result is I need a list of women.
You tell me, Mike.
Well, you could run your search and just add people to a lead list that's called the women lead list and check on the Sales Navigator search. You can do this. You can check,
Mm-hmm.
add them to a list.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy. Go to page 2, check, page 3, so on.
Yeah.
You can even on page 1, check the women, add them to the women's list, check the men, add to the men's list, go to page 2, rinse and repeat. There's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to skip a couple steps and you're targeting a really big area, I suggest you get the list of the top names. Alex or Andrew.
Oh, I see.
Or Albert. And with the fancy capacity you have on Sales Navigator, you can do this. And I did this for a friend. He is targeting coaches in cold weather areas, Minnesota,
Yep.
He picked like 20 cities in cold weather areas because he's selling a vacation package, a vacation tourism package. And it's generally men who go on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are, Alex or Andrew, like I said, and we got to A through C was the first search, and then C through F
Wow.
was the next one, and we literally did that.
So he just wanted to. So this is a great business case of why you would want to necessarily focus on targeting men or women, because that's what his clientele were. So he focused on finding men, and to do that, because LinkedIn does not specify, there's not a gender search in LinkedIn, right? You went ahead and just basically listed up every male and female name that you can think of.
Yeah, so you could do this on LinkedIn 5 names at a time.
Sure.
We did it 75 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And those folks go on to a list on Sales Navigator that he scrubbed before he reached out to them.
Sure. And then you just further scrub it until you have to start big and go small, right? That's
not every Andrew is one that he thinks is qualified. But let me add what else. We also use the filters, I believe, 10 plus years experience.
Mm-hmm.
We also use the industry professional training and coaching or management consulting.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 147 industries LinkedIn has, we jettisoned all but 2 of them because it's coaches who want to go down and essentially do what I'm doing in next month. Go down to Costa Rica and work your coaching business from down there.
Yeah.
Co-working center, closed office maybe. Maybe some of these folks want to do their stuff where they get the sound of waves in the background.
Yeah.
That was the project, that was the goal, and that's what we came up with.
Mm-hmm.
We also found he doesn't want to deal with folks that are retired.
Okay.
In this case here, he's looking primarily for folks that are not, that are still working.
Mm-hmm.
So in the keyword area at the very top, we put not retired. So we just didn't have to deal with people who weren't part of this.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to put together people that are going to live and work together, co-working group. You got a marketing guy and a sales guy and a graphics guy that are down in Costa Rica at a co-working center working together. Maybe they start a company, who knows? But that's what the target was. And we used maybe 8 filters by the time we were done out of the 30 filters.
And you went name by name, and then you region by region, you specified specific regions.
No, we had a dozen or so cities. Greater Minneapolis area, greater Chicago area, greater Columbus area, greater Cincinnati area. It was the Rust Belt.
So how big was the final list before you actually started to reach out to people?
Over 10,000.
Okay, so it's a big list.
Yeah, it came out really good. Yep.
Yeah. What was the conversion, or is he still doing it?
No, he's not using the systems and tools yet. He's just reaching out to select people just here and there at this point. He needs to fire up an automation system to choke through them.
Yeah.
So that he's not doing it. And that system will take his message in it is, hey, wouldn't you rather work in
Costa Rica? Yeah.
Costa Rica, Panama.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. I'm sorry, I'm a Van Halen guy.
So he isn't. Well, everybody should be if you're not, by the way. So go ahead.
Flippant fan of Van Halen.
I love it.
Absolutely. I'm kind of hoping Wolfgang will start a band someday. He's not up to it yet.
Oh, well, David Lee Roth apparently is spending a lot of I think he spends most of his time in Japan, wandering the streets of Shinjuku or Shibuya.
Women like him more in Japan.
He is who he is.
He can't sing anymore. Wolfgang's band won't have him, but they might. Wolfgang's band will just be like Jason Bonham, who started a Led Zeppelin experience.
Fantastic stuff. Yeah.
And you got all the best folks that go with him, but he could have pulled John Paul Jones in. He's not working nowadays. Jimmy Page isn't working nowadays, but it's only him with the others. So.
Yeah. Jimmy Page did Them Crooked. No, wait. John Paul Jones did Them Crooked Vultures, or was it Jimmy? I think it was John Paul Jones. Great.
John Paul Jones, I believe, did.
Great band. But anyway, so sorry. So let's just.
Hey, I'm the LinkedIn rock star. LinkedInrockstar.com takes people to my profile, so I refer to that every now and then.
Well, I know that you have a very strong taste in music, but look, you were talking about something that was important. That's important to me, which is taking those leads and turn them into going forward with them, and the use of automation to reach out to folks. And your client here is actually just going through lists one by one and just doing a very personal touch, it sounds like. So on the experiential end of this, for the as someone who's been targeted on a daily basis because I have the letters VP before my title in my day job, and because I'm in marketing, and because I'm a communicator, all these different things. Now I have a podcast. I can't tell you how many messages and how many people are reaching out to me for lead gen, for creative services, for hey, we're going to promote your podcast, for any number of things because I have certain keywords in my. And that, look, some of it is I chalk it up to the cost of doing business, but the fact is, it seems that there's something broken in the way that the automation works, and every user, all 700 million users of LinkedIn are not going to optimize their profiles to make sure that they're not attracted or they're not hit by the wrong messages, automated messages.
Yeah.
So, and people who use automation are not going to ever stop using automation because it works. They get, for whatever business they're in, they're sending out a certain number of messages to get a certain number of conversions, to get a certain number of sales, and just work out a spreadsheet. It could be 1 in 10, which is perfectly fine. But whatever your conversion rate is, you're going to get 10 crappy messages and 1 really good one, and that's great. That could cover you for 5 years depending on what you're selling.
That's right.
So you're not going to stop that. But LinkedIn as a platform seems to have a responsibility to make the user experience a little bit better. So to me, this is sort of something that's broken a little bit with LinkedIn. Like, how can LinkedIn users have a better experience, and how can the folks who are using Sales Navigator, the salespeople, the marketers, the independent business people who are really sincere and doing the right thing, how can they get through all that clutter and noise and actually come through as the real, authentic, and good sales, good offering with the good offerings that they have?
Well, it starts by having a list that you've scrubbed. So you've got a good list to start with. You're getting hit by stuff that doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
When you're trying to sell me makeup, that's wrong.
That's right.
Wrong. Nobody looked there. So someone might have taken a search, and I might have said in my search that I have a client, or in my profile, maybe Mary Kay is a client of mine. Mm-hmm. So I get caught up in that search, right? They're looking for Mary Kay people because they got this great makeup that goes with Mary Kay. So I get caught up in that search. No one scrubbed that list. Mm-hmm. If you just look at the headlines from the list that you get, that's what they're doing.
So it's laziness.
Well, they don't have Sales Navigator, perhaps.
Right.
Because Sales Navigator creates a list, and they might be using premium LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And with premium LinkedIn, they're plugging that search in because they didn't get a chance to scrub it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first part, is targeting. And when in doubt, kick them out. Mm-hmm. When in doubt, kick them out. Okay.
Before you even make that first outreach.
That's right. That's right. So the question is, we've got that list. How are we going to reach out to them? If you can go down that list and perhaps copy and paste in a templated message and put in Dear Dan, Dear Mike, Dear Fred, and tweak it a little bit for each person, that's the best experience.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that is by far the best. If you realize that maybe 1 in 10 or 1 in 5 are going to connect, you're spending a lot of time on people that are never going to connect. That's a lot of work that gets thrown out the window.
Yeah.
So if it's possible to create a message that works for everybody on that list, that's not customized. The list is people who love the Minnesota Wild hockey team. You can say hockey smack to them. Mm-hmm. But it might also be just CEOs of companies in Minnesota with 11 to 500 employees and all. They just all happen to be members of the Minnesota Wild hockey fan group on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You see how you were wondering, how can I create an experience that's more encompassing, that's more engaging, that pulls people in?
That's not going to piss people off, essentially,
As long as they like the Minnesota Wild, they'll connect with me, and they wouldn't have joined the LinkedIn Wild group, the Minnesota Wild group on LinkedIn, had they not. So that's a nice little side one.
Yeah.
Let me share where I'm doing this. Okay. So I have a client. His name is David Fishoff. He's in San Francisco. He actually lives in LA. Mm-hmm. They're different cities,
Yeah, I've heard that.
People from far away just California. Everything in California is all together, But he runs Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp is having their 25th anniversary. There's a documentary film, award-winning
Mhm.
documentary film. So he wants to get the word out about it. Well, how do you do that on LinkedIn? Well, my idea was we went to the LinkedIn groups, the guitar players groups, the
Smart.
professional musicians groups, because he's their gateway to talking to Billy Squire or Tommy Shaw or Paul Stanley or
Mhm.
Roger Daltrey.
Wow.
So Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp has been they can't do the camps in person anymore for a year. They
Not
haven't.
this year anyway. Yeah. Yep.
So they're doing master classes.
Mhm.
So there you are for $25. Literally, you can be in the master class watching Bruce Kulick from Kiss talking about how you spread your finger over this way a little
Mhm.
bit, and then you gotta. Yeah, I always spit on my fingers before I do that when I'm doing the little things you
The
just would
tips.
never learn.
Yeah.
And for a little more money, you can actually ask questions, and he can see you, and your face shows up. You can create a relationship with them. That's what they're doing now.
Mhm.
But to get people excited about this, we didn't just go to anybody. We went to the LinkedIn groups, and guitar players tend to be the ones that are the best.
Yeah.
There's more guitar players than anything. So I went to Fantasy Camp. I went to Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in 2010, and that's how I met him. And he became a client. We became good friends after that. And now I'm helping him again, now that the anniversary is upon us.
That's a great use for LinkedIn. I mean, people forget, I think, a lot about the groups. LinkedIn is such a platform with such depth. It's not just about searching people or looking for profiles and what's in your feed. It's finding those affinity groups. And I have to admit that, and I'm sure that you and many of the folks out there who have been on LinkedIn for as long as we have are the same way. I got like 50, 60 groups in my profile, right? So I have to go through. Maybe you don't because you're a little more conscious of it, but I have to go through and do a purge. Like I have to go through and make sure that A, all of these groups still exist, and B, they're active or they're not active, but find the groups that really fit me and where I'm not going to get mistargeted.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a really good point. There's no sense joining a group that you have no interest in at all. Purging groups is good because
Yeah,
you can't be artificially targeted for
that's
stuff.
right. Yeah.
Okay? That's a really good point. The other thing is you can now join 100 groups. It used to be 50. Now you can join 100.
So you get contract. Yeah.
So when I'm talking about groups, people expect me to be in a LinkedIn group or a marketing group, right?
Mhm.
So if you come to my profile and look at my groups, there's nothing to be had there. But if you happen to notice, I'm in the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp group.
Yeah.
What are you going to say to me, right? I've got this little thing on my chinny chin here, so I look like a rock star. I got
Yeah.
that from them. The rock stars got that. Bruce Springsteen put
He's
one on his chin one time.
Mike is showing his soul patch.
Soul patch. Yep. When Springsteen had one, I got one, and his is gone, and I kept it.
Look good on you. It suits you. Yeah.
I also belong to a Corvette lovers group and a Ferrari lovers group. If you were to mention Corvettes or Ferraris to me, you could be the most god awful person in the world, and you mention the two things near dearest to my heart, and I'll give you 30 minutes time
Yeah.
because you took a moment to find out. Maybe you just happened upon it somehow. But I reward people who micro target to me.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I always got time for someone and the word is micro target, not just,
Yep.
I see you're in Minnesota. You're in Prior Lake. Heck yeah. God, they had a great hockey team back in '07.
Yeah. I love these. I see you're a vice president. Okay. Like, okay, I'm a vice president of what? Of, you know, of GE, of the United States. What? No, I'm like, what kind of targeting is that? That's terrible. But if somebody goes and digs in and says, look, I've seen you lived in Japan for so long and you were in this particular, if I know that they've put in the effort, and then you're right, I'm far more likely to give them the time of day.
So we brought up two things. We've got the ad hoc stuff,
Mm-hmm.
slow, super targeted stuff. And then we've got the stuff that could be potentially systemized somehow, where
Yeah.
it's a scrub list. Scrub list. And I made sure everyone's in Minnesota, everyone's a coach, everyone's got more than 10 years,
Yeah.
there's no athletic coaches. It's just real business coaches. I
Mhm.
scrub that list good, you know. but everyone on that list going to get the same message.
Mhm.
Dear Dan, dear Mike, dear Paul.
Sure. That's the automation of it.
And that's if you have a job that's called sales rep,
Mhm.
or if you spend most of your time finding business as opposed to nurturing business, then that's the approach to take, and that's where systems sometimes come into play. And I do some work in that area sometimes.
Sure. Do you think that since the onset of the COVID era, as we're sort of still in, hopefully out of soon, but since the pandemic and there's this whole remote work thing where everybody's at home and or wherever you are, and we're no longer in the office, and people are spending a lot more time on LinkedIn, certainly on other places online, and that goes along with a lot of people starting their own businesses and really trying to take advantage of the tools of LinkedIn. I think people have become a lot more savvy, and a lot less patient about the way that they're marketing or being marketed to on LinkedIn. So, how has that affected the advice that you give to people in terms of what they should be doing to reach out to effectively through Sales Navigator?
It is, and I'm just going to come back to the component of lists.
Yeah.
Okay, if the smaller your list, the better. If we're not just Minnesota wild lovers, but we're also CEOs of technology companies that
Mhm.
have such a deal going on, and I look and I go like, you seem approachable. You don't,
Mhm.
you do. And now I've got my super duper targeted. Let me share how I can share with your folks how to do the most targeted list and the best results if you want a percentage basis.
Mhm.
The highest percentage is going to be if you target folks that are in your town,
Mhm.
and you mentioned here in the Twin Cities,
Yep.
and you've got a similar job title to what they have.
Mhm.
Okay. So your headline says CEO and their headline says CEO, or your headline says VP and theirs says VP. You can relate at the job
Mhm.
title level. I can relate at the Minnesota level. I can relate at the job title level. Also, you're in an industry that makes sense. I don't sell chicken feed. And if I'm calling on chicken feed people, they're going to look at me. Why are you calling on me?
Yeah.
But if it's a software product, they go, yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. I bet you got all kinds of software you use. So do I. That kind of stuff.
Yep.
But you can use LinkedIn to find people and reach out other ways. You don't have to find them,
Yes.
reach out to them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's nice because you get an email address when you connect with them and stuff. But
Mhm.
I mean, you know what JLR Corporation on 17th Street over there, they're in the phone book. They got a website,
Mhm.
Think of LinkedIn as a database, and
Yeah.
you can reach out on LinkedIn, but you don't have to. There's also one other thing, Dan, is you can think of LinkedIn as a way to find people,
Mhm.
and the database is elsewhere. It's a database
Sure.
of people, but the Denver Business Journal Book of Lists comes out, right? And it comes out like in August. And when it comes out, you've got the lists of all these companies, the top 100 in this, the top 100 there. And in a lot of cases, you even get the name of the person, the top 100 CEOs of companies over 50 employees in the
Yeah.
technology field.
Sure.
They do the search for you, and you take their name and you got to find them on LinkedIn, and then you put them on a lead list over on LinkedIn. Still,
Right.
we've still got a list.
That's classic, lead generation, right? I mean,
You were
well,
doing that.
I was taught that when I was in the recruitment field in 1996 and 7. Like, hey, go through a magazine, find a best of list, write these people's names down, and then find them. You know, and now
How
LinkedIn makes
hard
that
is
a
it
lot
to
better.
find out about them now, right?
Yeah, now it's LinkedIn.
Still call 1-800 get JCL Corp, but you know that he went to University of Iowa.
Mhm.
Well, I went to Iowa State. I always say, how about them Hawkeyes? It's an inside thing.
Yeah,
Everyone always knows. Everyone who went to the University of Iowa is, how about them Hawkeyes? Man, and and you know that little how about that's 4 words, and I'm in like Flint with anyone
yeah.
from the
And
University of Iowa.
well, what you're saying, all of this really can be boiled down to, if I'm going to oversimplify, to relevance, right? To being highly relevant to the person that you're talking to. I mean, it's the same thing for, whether you are selling, marketing, whether you are communicating, whatever it is. The point is, you want to find an audience, and and persuade them to do something for you. And the way to do that, the way to find the right audience, is to be highly, highly relevant. Your story has to be relevant to what they need. Your product, your offering has to be relevant to what they're looking for. So it sounds like, it makes sense if you start with a really highly engineered and clean list. What you're really doing is from another way of looking at it is you've done a really good job of identifying your audience and determining the relevance of what you're doing, what you're offering to them. So it makes sense to me.
It's an exclusive club to be able to work with you when you do this sort of thing. You're kicking people out. They might not like me. I'm wearing a shirt that has fish on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, you are. I can
If
confirm.
I happen to know that that they like fishing,
Yeah.
this is the shirt. I might happen to be wearing it anyway. But like if I know they're a car guy, I got car shirts over here, and I have done that.
Yeah.
So let's say this week is Car Week, where I'm just going to target CEOs of companies in Minnesota who also belong to these car groups. And I'm just trying to book appointments with them because I got my car shirt on this week. Those little subtle little things that come up into play, because we want it. We want to, even more now than ever, we want more people to talk to. We miss that face to face.
Absolutely. It's moved into, LinkedIn has moved closer and closer to the social rather than the media part. I think there's always I guess a vocal subset of people who are like, well, we don't want LinkedIn to become Facebook, and we don't want LinkedIn to be something else. And it hasn't. I mean, I don't think it's anything like the other social platforms in so many ways. But on the other hand, it is a place to make connections and relationships, just as any other platform is. I find that LinkedIn is the best place for me to build relationships, certainly for business. But I'm also finding that the people I have the most in common with socially, that I want to go and have a beer with, or whatever. If you are in recovery,
You hit that on the head. Let me explain something. I'm going to try to be right down the middle on this one here. Okay. If you happen to lean right or left politically,
mm-hmm.
and you can see that the other person leans the same way as you, 2 steps forward.
Mm-hmm.
When you see that that's not the case, you have to make sometimes a moral dilemma decision. I don't mean a moral dilemma decision quite in the moral way, but that person there, in a lot of cases, we work with folks that own a franchise to a town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there might be 5 or 10 other people. And I'm looking at 5 or 10 people in Portland deciding which of the one, because I can only work with one.
Mm-hmm.
Which of the one am I most aligned with? And literally, I took the 10 of them, put them in a spreadsheet, and I ranked them 1 through 5, and the others were 5 or more. I don't even need their who were the first 5. So I reach out to the first one to see that I have the most in common with. And that may be political, it could be for any kinds of reasons.
Sure.
We both went to Iowa State, Vikings, hey, Seahawks, whatever. Portland. Portland doesn't have a football team, so Seahawks, yeah. And if the first one doesn't bite after a while, then I go to the second one. If they don't bite for a while, I go to the third one.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, because who you choose determines who you cannot choose.
Yeah.
I got to say no to the other 9, so I might as well be the picker.
Yeah. I mean, unlike wealth, you are limited in the number of people that you can interact with on a daily basis. I mean, I believe in abundance. I believe that there's no, it's not a zero sum game when it comes to things like money and finance. Although personally, I have yet to experience that. But I think, as far as people goes, there's only a certain number of people that you can deal with at any one given time. However big your network is, you're really only focusing you have only a certain amount of attention to give. So you're right. Every time you make a choice, there is an opportunity cost, I think, of somebody you're not talking to. So it is important to get to know them. I personally we don't talk politics on my podcast for so many reasons, because frankly, it's so alienating. But I look at Facebook, and that's where you can see people wear their politics on their sleeve. You look at LinkedIn, maybe more so. You get that it's happening, but not nearly as much. And it's a little bit more about, like, I can see what people are concerned about in their professional life and sometimes in their personal life, and that's where I'd prefer to build a relationship.
In this particular case, it was LinkedIn groups in this case
Ah,
where it came into play.
yeah, I can imagine that.
'Cause I was just looking for groups anyway, you know?
Hmm.
It wasn't like I was trying to decide, based on something like that. And I thought, wow, like I got 10 of them here,
Hmm.
Now there's only 9 to choose from, you
Yeah.
know? That kind of thing. And you mentioned Facebook, and I
Hmm.
really want to point that out. Facebook is where we live our lives. Facebook is where we do our business. LinkedIn is where we do our business. Facebook is where we live our lives.
Yeah.
And I am 3/4 done now. I used to be 100% done with my LinkedIn book called Prescription for a Crisis, and it's LinkedIn, Facebook, and email. It covers
Mm.
all 3 platforms. Now, some things have happened. Both LinkedIn and Facebook changed all their user interfaces.
Uh-huh. So you had
So
to go back.
all the screenshots, in the process, right? So you can see where
Okay.
I'm at on that one.
Yeah.
But even if you just use Facebook just to research,
Mhm.
I put in Dan Nessel, I'll find you. Maybe
Absolutely.
Daniel. I'll find you there, and then I can
Mhm.
kind of see, if how COVID's affecting your life, and I might
Mhm.
work some of that into my personalization of you, into what
Mhm.
I write to you, or what I say, or at least it's good for me to know, that if you had COVID, I'd really like to know that instead of talking,
Sure.
how's your day going, Dad? How you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
Got COVID here.
Mhm.
You'd find that out on Facebook.
Most likely.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, someone on Facebook is going to share that. Now, maybe they don't share it with people they don't know. They're
Yep.
not friends with. That could be locked down, but you find that kind of information there because people are more open to needing help. If I need help, I'm not going to ask on LinkedIn for help. I don't want to show myself as needy.
Mhm.
But on Facebook, I'll stick my head out. It's okay to be more vulnerable on Facebook and
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, you have to choose the way that the platform, works for you and how you want to represent yourself on that platform. You're right. And, for all intents and purposes, I mean, I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than I do on any other platform, because I'm a business person. I mean, because I do research on the people that I'm speaking with, but I also, I conduct my marketing and communications activities on a day-to-day basis. LinkedIn is the best source of information for me. It just is. Like if I want to know what's happening in the industry, I want to know what people are like the leading thinkers are saying now, not to wait for them to publish something. If I want to know what's going on with, any number of experts that I interact with, LinkedIn is the place for me to find that. It keeps me up. It really does keep me sharp at the top of my game. And I love it. I love it for that reason. But what I wanted to ask you actually, where I was going with this is where do you think it's all going? Like where's LinkedIn headed? You've been on the platform, like we've been on the platform as long as the platform has been. And I don't know where it's going, but I definitely want to know what you think, where you think it's going. You are very deep in it. What do you think?
I think the future is a common user interface to all of your social media. In
Hmm.
other words, a front end to LinkedIn and to Facebook and Twitter and
Mhm.
Instagram and whatever else you want to have. So there's something else that's in front of it all. So when I see an inbox, in my inbox has my messages coming from all of those platforms in one spot.
Mhm.
I'll bet I can relate. You can relate to this. So you got a note from somebody, or somebody said, "I sent you a note."
Yeah.
Where do you go look for that, Dan?
And I have to look 7 different places.
Right? Wouldn't it be great if they were all in one spot? And if that note came in on Facebook, maybe really though it should go out instead as a text message because it's more current. I'll be
Yeah.
there at 2. That's not a Facebook message. That's a text message. You know,
Mhm.
do you want to go today? That's a Facebook message. I'll be there at 2. That's a text message. And it's front ends all of that inbox activity.
Yeah.
And your database is a combination of all of those databases kind of sucked into one.
Mhm.
And you've got maybe APIs that talk to the platforms for you
Yeah.
or third party tools that push buttons for you.
Some of those third-party tools are trying to do that, like aggregate your messages in one place. I think Zoho Social does it. I'm using them, but I'm not quite there yet. I haven't broken off into that functionality yet. But I
I
think,
like Soho, and I
yeah,
think that is the premier one in that niche market. Now, that niche market is one where you're going to really put a deep investment into a CRM system.
mhm,
You want to put a half a step in, Pipedrive, I think, is the better platform. There's less fancy development stuff, but it's easier for someone who doesn't have an expert to set it up for them.
sure,
You pretty much have to have someone else set up Zoho for you if you're going to have stuff do.
It depends on which package you choose. Like there's that
That's right.
for the solopreneur and for an independent operator, they have this very inexpensive option, which is really great if you have 5 or 6 channels that you just want to post content to. Highly recommended, very easy to use. Kind of like Buffer or one of those other kind of it's like Sprout or something is far, far, far too much. That would be, thumbtack with a sledgehammer type of a thing. Whereas you can find a small accommodating package on a couple of different platforms, but I just happen to be using Zoho.
I'm talking specifically about the CRM part.
Yeah, I'm not using it. Okay,
channels.
that's right. That's a different product within the Zoho empire, I think, and they're all connected together. But I do think Zoho does a great job, and they're very good service and all that kind of stuff. So highly recommended. But that's an interesting point. If it's all kind of coming together under a universal interface, I am always frustrated with LinkedIn messaging. With the way that works, it boggles the mind how they can't get around to making that better. Especially if you're using Sales Navigator and you got 2 different platforms, and one the messages that are sent through Navigator don't go across to LinkedIn unless you do something to do something to do something. Like you have to take action for that to happen.
So I'm working with a new LinkedIn CRM tool, and I'm not going to name it. Look me up here if you want to talk about it. But it does integrate. It integrates with LinkedIn.com and the Sales Navigator inbox, and it also puts people into a sequencing. Just began, qualified, had a call, quoted, negotiating. Literally, it's a CRM that is tightly related in with LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. It doesn't require Sales Navigator, but you wouldn't use it if you didn't have it.
What we'll do is when we send people to look into your profile and look into other places, they can find that information directly from you, which kind of brings us to the part of this whole thing that I tend to really dislike, which is we got to wind this down. And it's been a tremendous hour sitting with you, Mike. And what I love about this episode is that this has been maybe one of the most practical, I think, and immediately actionable discussions that I've had during the course of my podcast. I would love to have people go and talk to you and learn more. Of course, you can look up Mike O'Neill. It's only with one L, O'Neil. Neil, but O'Neil. You can just search for him on LinkedIn. You'll find him. And again, it's with Integrated Alliances is the name of his company. So if you find the Mike O'Neill that has the Integrated Alliances, you're with the right guy. And you can also go to integratedalliances.com to learn more and find out more about Mike. Where else can people find you, man? And what else can they do to kind of look you up?
I have tremendous free stuff.
Oh, everybody likes free.
Really great free stuff. And it goes with the things we were talking about today.
Okay.
You got to dress up your profile a little bit. Got a profile guide. Okay. Just a little 4-pager. But now we talked about industries, didn't we? Didn't we talk about LinkedIn industries? There's 147 of them. There's a great LinkedIn industry guide there where they're grouped together, like the technology and the manufacturing folks grouped together.
Yeah.
How to write articles and post and promote your articles on LinkedIn and stuff. And it's all at navigatinglinkedin.com.
Navigatinglinkedin.com. Okay. I like that.
Those 2 words. You can book a call with me right on Navigating LinkedIn as well. It links to my calendar account and stuff. But that's just, I only mentioned a few things, but boy, the stuff that's there goes totally with this. That's my coaching resources site. So when I do coaching with clients, and I a couple of years kind of opened it up to everybody.
Well, you sometimes just you need to essentially give it away in order to give to get. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to share in this day and age. And by the way, I really appreciate you doing that because I think I mentioned very early on, but Mike has been incredibly helpful to me in my LinkedIn journey, especially over the past several months. And I can personally vouch that the advice that Mike is giving, especially when it comes to like some of the more, I guess, detail-oriented parts of what you need to do on LinkedIn to succeed, it works. And I can think of almost nobody better than Mike to talk to about this kind of stuff. So look, on that note, I really hope that everybody goes and checks out Mike O'Neill. And again, his name will be spelled the same way it's going to be spelled in the title of this podcast episode. And check out Integrated Alliances. Check out navigatinglinkedin.com. Look up Mike on social media. Mike there's quite a few videos. There's any number of ways to get to know Mike. And clearly through this conversation, I'm sure you heard that he's a very affable fellow. I thank him so much for your time. Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate you coming here.
It was really fun. We had a lot of fun getting to know each other, didn't we, Dan?
We sure did, man. Thanks so much. If you enjoyed this episode of The Dan Nessel Show, please head on over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the podcast player of your choice to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And please don't forget to spread the word. Thanks for listening.